So let's start writing some tests for clean numbers. For this in numbers test.js, I will start by adding some suites, because now I'm not just testing transform to number, but also clean numbers, and I of course want to organize my tests so that it's clear and easy to see which tests belong to which function. Hence, I'll import describe from vtest, and then call describe here, and take transform to number as an identifier, which I set here, and then I move all my existing tests into this inner anonymous function, because all existing tests belong to transform to number. And with that done, thereafter as a second step, I will add describe again, describe my clean numbers here, this function, and now we can add the brand new tests for this function here in this describe statement. And we can start by writing a first test where I want to test the core functionality this function should fulfill and provide. If I pass an array of number values to clean numbers, so that's an array of strings where every string value in the end contains a number, if I pass such an array to clean numbers, I expect to get back that array with the numbers, so to say. So where the numbers in the array are real numbers, they are of type number. That's what I expect to get back. Now, to achieve this, I will write a test here where I say it should return an array of number values if an array of string number values is provided. That hopefully makes sense. And then here, how could we set up this test? Well, first I'll arrange the number values that I want to use. So that could be an array that looks like this, where we have numbers that are technically strings. Then I want to call clean numbers. And for this, of course, we need to import clean numbers from the numbers file. And then here we call clean numbers and pass the number values to it. And then here I get back my numbers, or my cleaned numbers, however you want to call it. And then my expectation is what? Well, there are different ways of formulating the expectation. We could say that the expectation is that for cleaned numbers, the first element is to be type of number. That would make a lot of sense. If we set it like this, and we then run npm test, this test fails though, because it looks like I actually got back undefined as the first array element, but that only happened because I mistyped this. It should be cleaned numbers, not clean numbers. And therefore now, if I test this again, everything passes. So that's the first test, and that's one way of evaluating this. Another way of evaluating will be shown later in the course when we'll dive into some slightly more advanced or special features offered by vtest and also by Jest. For the moment, we'll keep this test like this. But now this test technically could be called an integration test, because by executing clean numbers here, we are also, of course, implicitly executing these validation functions. And why does this matter? Why are integration tests important? Well, because even if we test all units standalone and they all work correctly, we could be combining them such that they still don't work correctly in combination. For example, if we take this line of code where we call transform to number, this is crucial. If we don't execute this line of code, then we will get back an array of numbers that are still strings technically. But we also get back such an array if we call it too late. If I, for example, transform my number here, and by accident, I push number input here onto the numbers array. If that would be my code here, if I think that this would work, or if I would think that this should work and it should transform the number after it was added to an array, then testing transform to number standalone won't be the problem. All tests related to this function will still work. But it's the integration, the usage of this function in another context that's causing an error. Because if I would change the code like this, accidentally or on purpose, then if I execute my tests again, we would have a failing test, and it would be that one test that tests clean numbers, so that tests the integration of multiple functions into one function, that fails now. And that's the value of integration tests. They allow us to test the combination of functions instead of just the functions standalone, because testing functions standalone sometimes doesn't do the trick. Of course, if I now fix the code again and I move everything back to where it was, if I then run npm test again, all tests are passing again. But that's the value of integration tests in the end. And that's of course just one way of writing such an integration test, but I hope it's clear why we're doing this and what's happening here in the end.